Okay, good evening. It is now 6:30, and I will call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. The first item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Does staff have any changes?
No changes from staff.
Commissioners?
No.
Okay, see none. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, by John and Robert. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. The second item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the October 14th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. Staff, any changes?
No changes from staff.
Commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move. So moved.
So second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. The third item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan amendment for Center Village presented by Regina Dean.
Good evening, Planning Commission. It's been a while. So this is a public hearing. It is to change the comprehensive plan in a couple of areas near the Burnsville Center from low-density residential to mixed use and from business to mixed use. And I'll show a map which explains or helps provide more context in a minute. So for background, the 2040 Comprehensive Guide Plan Update was first kicked off in 2016, and that's a multi-year process that cities in the metropolitan region go through, and the city took the time to go through the citizen comment period, land use changes. There's a lot of public outreach that went into this. Eventually, through that entire process in front of commissions and council, the Metropolitan Council ultimately approved that comp plan update in June of 2019, and then the City Council adopted that comp plan update in July of 2019. As that process was going through, again, multi-year process, one of the implementation steps that's highlighted in that comp plan is talks about the center village vision, and that process kind of went concurrently through the approval process through the Metropolitan Council. So because all this was in action and moving, we weren't able to propose the comp plan change that I'll show you, which we're requesting before you today at that time. So we're requesting, the city is requesting to change the comp plan from business and low-density residential to mixed use. So the 2040 plan changed the area around the Burnsville Center and the properties to the west to mixed use. What we're asking for today is to re-guide the area from business north of this line here to County Road 42, north of County Road 42, to County Road 5, just to the west, and then to the north of County Road 42. There's also a pocket of low-density residential. There's a church that's currently vacant, has been vacant for some time. We're proposing to change that as part of this proposal as well. The acreage, we're talking about approximately 165 acres of change from business to mixed use, and about 6 acres from that low-density residential to mixed use. This does coincide with our Center Village plan. It's one of the implementation steps within that Center Village Vision Plan as well. So that shows the change, what it would look like to mixed use. As part of the proposal, in your packet, there are also text changes associated with the proposal. So we identify the Center Village now in the comp plan as proposed, and then identified those land use acreage changes within the chart and within the map as well. So that's covered with the text amendment. As part of the comp plan change request, we were required to notify adjacent jurisdictions. We've done that. We have received comment from Dakota County, and then a few agencies submitted waivers saying that they didn't have any comment, and then other cities just chose not to comment or provide any additional information. Noted in Dakota County's comments are concerns about an ask for us to complete our traffic study that's currently underway prior to taking any action. From a city staff standpoint, we feel that this will move concurrently and we'll take any necessary measures should a project come in that we would work with the applicant to address any concerns from the county at that time should something come in. We're also, I should note, from an engineering standpoint, we have a citywide sewer model underway. So one of the things that the Metropolitan Council looks at is sewer and water capacity, and that's something that's underway for this area as well. So we'll provide, through this request to the Metropolitan Council, we'll provide them with that information as well. The proposal is consistent with our current 2040 plan, as indicated. In that plan, increased densities around transit corridors and around transit stations is recommended as an implementation step, and then also an emphasis on mixed use around the Burnsville Center. Staff feels that we're accomplishing these goals, and we do recommend approval of the comprehensive plan. This is a public hearing. Certainly, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Commissioner Awad.
What is the, maybe you can remind us what the difference between business, low-density residential, and mixed use is?
Yep.
What are the differences between the
Sure.
two?
So low-density residential, typically associated zoning that you could think of for low density is single-family residential. And then we also allow religious institution with conditional use permit. That's why you would note that there's a church on this particular site that we're highlighting. And then the red, the business guiding would allow for zoning of your retail, commercial, office, does not allow for residential.
Okay.
And then the mixed use allows for higher density residential. It does allow for business, commercial, retail. So basically everything that the business district allows for, with the addition of your higher density residential and kind of at that higher density.
Thank you.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Hi. So the question I have is just that small part of residential that's being considered to be moved to mixed use. Has there been any comments or concerns from the neighbor near that property?
As part of the guide plan change, we're not required to provide a typical notification like you would for a rezoning. And we did not do that in this case. There have been multiple concepts that have been proposed throughout the years that have been, I would say, higher density in nature. So multifamily housing has been proposed in concept on the site. And there are, it is being actively marketed where we could see intensity. So it does abut existing commercial retail. We felt that it could be a nice transition from a city staff point, and again aligns with the Center Village vision.
Yeah, I think it's a great piece of property. I just am concerned about the folks that live in that area, but it's been sitting there vacant for how long now? Years.
As long as I've been here, I
Right.
mean, over 5 years, I would say.
So I really like the idea of encapsulating that into the project, so that's nice.
Commissioner John.
So you're having everything north of 42, County Road 42, become mixed use. Are we thinking high-density housing in that area? I'm trying to remember back to the original Center Village plan. Why are we, because for the most part, the focus, I believe, is in the mall area, correct? It does go north of that, that's true, but.
Right. So if I may answer, The Center Village vision does show kind of a 0 to, I would say, almost a 30 or 40-year plan. So the 0 to 5 years on the eastern side of the mall property, kind of as you go west and north, it starts increasing, we think, as far as time it will take to develop. And then north of County Road 42, we do think that that's probably longer range, which a comp plan does provide for that longer range vision. So again, adopting this would be that 2040 year outlook, which aligns with that Center Village. You could still have business within a mixed-use zoning district, but we do envision in time opportunity for higher density housing within this general area.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. And this is just for me to know. On page 85, on one of the additions that was added, it says identify a future orange line extension transit station location. Does the city of Burnsville do that, or does Met Council, or is it a collaboration?
So the orange line, there is an extension station that is planned somewhere in the general area of the Burnsville Center property. Currently, Metro Transit has identified the Burnsville station located in this area, as well as a Lakeville station, and their kind of their extended regional transitway, their plan. It's not officially slated for approval yet, but Dakota County is currently has undertaken what they're calling an orange line extension study. They're almost complete with that. That exercise or that study shows the station located likely on the eastern side of the property, and they envision that it could be constructed, if approved, at time of redevelopment.
Okay.
So the Orange Line extension in heart of the city, and then in Bloomington, Richfield, Minneapolis, that's slated to open the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. This could be likely 2023, or again, at time of development. So it could be scooted up a little bit, or, depending on development, it could fall behind.
Thank you. And then my other question, and you may have said this and I may have missed it. After the traffic study is completed, does the comp plan have to be updated again, or is that just in addition to?
So the traffic study will, part of that will indicate how many trips are potentially identified within the area, how many vehicle trips, and that type of information will have to plug into our application to the Metropolitan Council. They also ask for employment numbers, so that information from the traffic study will help guide that as well. And again, so what happens, let's say Planning Commission, you decide to recommend approval of this, goes to City Council, and they need a supermajority vote for this. Let's assume that they approve or recommend approval. Then staff fills out an application to the Metropolitan Council with the proposed text changes and the technical data. The Metropolitan Council reviews it, and then the council decides if they're going to approve the change, and then it goes back to City Council for an adoption resolution. So that's kind of the steps that are involved.
But will the traffic study be included with that, or is that just it? Okay.
It will.
Okay.
Yeah, that information will be.
Okay. Okay. That's all I had. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing at 6:44 p.m. If there's anybody wishing who would like to speak about this topic, please come to the podium. Nope, nobody wants to, okay. Well, we'll round up and close the public hearing at 6:45 p.m. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion then?
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission recommended the City Council approval of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan text and map amendment as it was presented tonight.
Second.
By Roberts. Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Okay. So the fourth item on the agenda is a public hearing for the city of Burnsville for an amendment to Title 10 zoning, Chapter 7, General Provisions, Section 18, Screening and Buffer Areas, Chapter 12, R1, One Family Residential District, and Chapter 14, R2, Two Family Residential District of the Burnsville City Code to modify screening requirements for trash and recycling receptacles in single-family and two-family residential areas.
Thank you, that's a lot of information. I'm gonna try to simplify it through my presentation, hopefully. So essentially, this item came before the city council at a work session in October. It actually was a result of some changes that we made with our commercial standards, and they said, well, let's look at our residential standards while we're at it. So the direction at that city council work session was to essentially remove the screening requirements that we have in our current city code. So currently, you need to screen your trash cans, recycling cans, with perhaps a fence or landscaping, something that would block the view from the street looking towards your house in a single-family zoning district. So your trash cans could certainly be stored inside of a garage or other structure, but essentially the idea was from council, let's just remove the screening requirements altogether. And then they had mentioned that they really liked City of Plymouth's language, which states that screening is not required, but these your trash cans, recycling cans do need to be within close proximity to your structure, your principal structure, your detached garage. They talk about alleyways, but we really don't have alleys in Burnsville, so we didn't move forward with that proposal. But essentially, they wanted to simplify our language. And so city staff is proposing to eliminate the section of the city code that pertains to that screening requirement in its entirety for this subsection. And then we do want to give reference to where this is required as far as where trash cans can be located and the distance from a structure that they need to be located within our single-family zoning district. And then also our R2 zoning district, or our two-family zoning district, which you can think of like duplexes, mostly fall within that zoning district. They feel a lot like single-family neighborhoods. And so we propose to amend the language as you see on your screen. As part of the process between work session and today, we also did some community outreach. You know, what are the citizens of Burnsville saying? So we, of course, did our public hearing notice. This is required, and we do publish in the Pioneer Press. That's our official newspaper. We also provided a press release, which was sent out to local media outlets. We put a post on Facebook and a website comment form. So before you, or in your packet, there are results of this community outreach within the background. That's also summarized. And then before you tonight, we basically closed the comment period as far as we needed to get the packet out to you on Thursday. So we stopped taking those physical comments and stopped assembling them. And we said we would hand carry any comments from that point forward. So before you tonight, you have a sheet of comments from Facebook comments that we received. You have a sheet of about 10 comments from additional comments from that website comment form, and then also one email that was received to City Council that was forwarded to us in the Planning Department. So just to break it down, of the comments that we received through the city website, we received 155 comments total from that submittal form. And in summary, 55% were in opposition of any change to the current ordinance. They felt general that the screening was a good thing. The screening requirements were a good thing. 41% were in favor of change of the ordinance, so basically what we've proposed today, they were in favor of. And then 4% were neutral. And then, of course, the emails, the one that you received in front of you tonight, and then the one in the background, a couple of voicemails that we've summarized, and then some Facebook comments as well. With that, staff does recommend approval of the ordinance as presented. I'm certainly here if there are any questions. In our audience, we do also have Chris Forsland, who manages our code enforcement and rental licensing, if there are any specific questions as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner John?
So you said that staff is in support of the ordinance. Is there a reason behind that at all? Anything in particular?
We were directed by city council.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily an opinion, it's, yeah.
The city council, whether it's through their work session format or planning commission work plans, economic development commission work plans, parks and rec commission work plans, or just through recommendations, we often take code changes through the process, and this one happened to be through a city council directive, I would say. As a planning commission, if you feel, one way or the other, or have a different change, you can recommend what you want to recommend, as you're the recommending body.
Sure.
Commissioner Anderson?
I was just wondering, as the ordinance is now, other than fencing, what kind of, do certain type of bush work for covering that? I'm just curious, because I'm looking at one of the comments who says, their trash receptacle located on the side of their house against a wall protected from view by trees, and they still got a citation. So I'm just kind of curious, what would be requirements other than direct, privacy fences?
Landscaping, if it could accomplish screening, typically it may be something that provides year-round screening, like a evergreen. Typically that would provide year-round screening. I don't know the particular instance, and I can't speak to that specifically. But landscaping, or landscaping in combination with fencing, would typically be appropriate.
Is anything that kind of obscures the view, or you can't see it at all?
I may turn to our code enforcement, Chris Forsland, just because him and the staff are the ones that, would be the typical going out to.
We'll go for it.
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just to clarify, is we would not issue a citation. It would be generally following a series of notices. And then it would be what we call a reinspection fee to cover our time to go back and check again, just so everybody's clear on what that would be. Some of the problems we encounter with some of the landscaping materials, and I guess it's not problems all the time, but observances, is we have folks sometimes will say there's a vegetation barrier behind it, and it really looks like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. So we have to have some sort of subjective way to really see if we can see that safe, perhaps, from the road. And it's very difficult to do under a lot of different circumstances. So I guess every case would differ if they're using vegetation as some sort of buffer.
Okay.
So if that kind of helps clarify that a little bit.
Okay, and I was also wondering, because I see a lot talking about trash and recycling. What about lawn waste bins?
Sorry, what?
Like lawn waste bins?
Yard waste?
Yeah, yard waste.
It would be, I think, under the proposed ordinance covered in the same thing. We don't really have too much of a problem with that.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know sometimes if people clean up their yards, they might have 20 or 30 bags until they come to pick it up. Is that something that would then cause an issue if they're temporarily in sight until the trash can pick them up?
Well, temporarily is always subjective too, isn't it? My version of temporarily shouldn't be there over a week. We require once a week pickup.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Timmerman?
Mr. Forson, follow-up question is, the presentation tonight talks about the budget impact. Can you talk a little bit about how much time and resources you currently spend on enforcing this particular ordinance, and what you think the actual reduction of budget time and money will be if this is loosened?
These are, I mean, I think everybody's probably here, and I know our council has said that this is, our number one violation, yet it's also our number one complaint. And that's partially the reason why I want to be here today. I want to hear a little bit about the discussion. We do get calls on this a lot. Rarely is it only a single item. That's what I want to clarify too, is usually there's other issues going on, let alone somebody leave their trash cans out in front. And couple that with just folks who may have some misinterpretation as well of the codes. If they leave them down by the curb, is that necessarily storage? I say, no, they just forgot to bring them back. So we have to use a great deal of discretion in taking a look at what we would consider being a violation and what's not. If we have a repeat, after we've given informational letters out notifying them it's a violation, a first notice of violation out, we might be a little concerned they're just not gonna take them up or store them properly. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Could I follow up, Chair?
Yes.
So my follow-up to that is, with the new ordinance, the way it's written, we're going to loosen the screening requirement, but there's still not going to be, we'll still enforce unsightly trash collection or gathering.
That's a separate violation.
Right.
That's a health nuisance.
Okay,
So that's how we would address that.
okay.
As far as, I know your last question was about time spent, very subjective. We don't break down by how much time we spend on a violation. We see it there, we've had a complaint on it, like I said, many of the complaints are public driven. They're not from the city going out and looking necessarily. We get a complaint on it.
Could I just follow up one more time? What other things could you and your staff be focusing on other than this particular ordinance if this is updated?
Well, I really don't want to go there. But certainly, the things that we've got limited resources, and we're very cognizant of how to use those resources. We triage, for lack of a better word, all of our cases, and we take a look at how, is this what's really important for the community? Like I said, these, are rarely just a single standalone can or something like that. It's usually coupled with other items.
Well, thank you for going there.
Commissioner John.
So basically follow up on Commissioner Timmerman. A lot of the comments say, hey, are we gonna lax all of our regulations, or is it just this one? Can you confirm for the people that are watching that we're not gonna go wild here and have everything be out in the open?
This is council's prerogative. We do, the code allows us to do. And that's where the limits of law extend to us. If they want to be stricter, that's council's choice. If they want to be lax, that's council's choice. We just do what we're directed to do.
Okay. Can I follow up on that as well? So somebody going out and looking at these violations, et cetera, do you personally feel like you think that removing the screening is a better idea? Is it gonna help things, or is it going to make things a little bit more chaotic, or?
I'm gonna fall back on, again, it's not up to my opinion. My opinion is what the law says and what it provides for. From an enforcement perspective, I'm really interested to find that answer out myself. Like I said, it is, people call on it a lot. It's, and this is also in the council record, very hot button subject too. It's, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like people and their animals. They really take it personally. And we get that. We try to explain, well, it's been in the books, the screening requirement, as far as I know, back almost 40 years. There's a reason for it. And there's, it's been there for a while. And it's interesting to hear, the discussions and look through what the comments were.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
Can I just interject? What Do you know what was the reason of putting that in the ordinance?
Sorry, what portion of it?
That it has to be screened, that your trash cans have to be screened?
Well, it's not uncommon for cities, that, you know, that when we looked at this, we looked at what a lot of other cities have done. Some have complete screening and some have just take them into the right of way or out of the right of way. There's quite a variety. What triggered it back in the 1980s or whenever it showed up, that's as far as I got back. I don't know, we'd have to look in the public record farther.
If I could address that. It's very common for zoning ordinances. You have to remember that, and this is even going back to our discussions when we had our last planning commission training. The intent and purpose in terms of zoning, planning, comprehensive planning, is you're looking to try to, at minimum, maintain, but enhance, or even make better the community in terms of valuation, in terms of structures, in terms of all of these things. And a very common way to deal with things like that are, what do properties look like? And a very easy way to deal with that from a code standard is to have screening requirements or screening standards. We did have a number of years ago a court case where the judge did not understand the meaning of the word opaque. We used to allow just screening, meaning it didn't have to be 100% blocked, but basically screened. And there was like a 75 or 80% opacity standard, which is also very common for communities to have. But the judge did not understand that, so we had to go back and amend the ordinance to specifically state 100% screening of, you know, blah, 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 under all of these areas where we have screening. So, but it's, you know, if you're looking at how do you maintain property values in your community, this is one of the many things. So it's very common to have that standard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Commissioner Awad?
You mentioned that it's the number one violation, it's the number one complaint. Is it the complaint that drives the inspection, or is it, or not necessarily a
Well,
complaint?
we inspect whenever we get a complaint.
Okay,
And
so you're not just driving around looking for,
Oh, God, we don't
things.
have time to
Okay.
do nothing but that.
okay,
What we obviously will do though is when we do get a complaint, you know, the most common reaction is, well, my neighbors all have them. And, okay, well, look, you know, so we end up doing it, you know, look in the local area as well.
okay,
I mean, we wanna treat everybody fair, we wanna, you know, pick our battles and pick out, you know, what the intent of the codes was. Again, could be very subjective, and it really puts a lot of burden on staff, particularly when we get 2 feet of snow and they can't get them in, you know, get them in a storm. I get that too. So it's a tough battle sometimes. All the time.
Commissioner Roberts?
Thanks. In regards to, it was amazing when you talk about the personal aspect, because as you read through all the comments from everybody, I don't know if anybody that wasn't that personal. They were really personal on a lot of them. There was guys writing half a book. Just so, Regina, just so we understand this, right now, the code basically says that your trash cans, your recycle cans, and your refuse cans, your leaves and all that kind of stuff, have to either be in a building, you know, out of sight, or screened out of view. Okay?
That's correct.
Correct. The change we're looking at is specifically going to, now those containers have to be within 5 feet of a garage or a structure. That doesn't say it's a front, side, back, or whatever, just 5 feet from that structure, or behind something, which I know in here was stating a primary structure or home. Okay, that's what it was read, okay?
Correct.
I don't know if we're opening Pandora's box in regards to everyone now has their trash cans in front of their garage doors, but they're 5 feet, so now you can have all 3 of those nice, beautiful colored things in front of but you're 5 feet, but you're right in plain view of everybody driving through, which a lot of the comments that I read, people were concerned about neighborhoods turning that way, where you can see trash cans everywhere. You know, and if you have your trash can there, I know it does state that you have to have it a closed type of thing. You can't have stuff just overflowing. That's a different issue, I would guess. Yeah. But I think a lot of people were very concerned about having trash cans just down the line. And, I mean, I live in a neighborhood where we have a set of, rules that we have in our neighborhood alone that you can't do that. So that's a whole different level of stuff. But from a citywide standpoint, there was a lot of concern about people saying, well, now we can just basically just leave them out. As long as somebody comes by with a yardstick and says it's within 5 feet, we're good to go. And I just want to make sure that everybody
correct.
watching
That's
this
correct.
is clear that that's what we're talking about.
That's correct.
Okay. Because that's what I'm basing, what I'm looking at right now as a neighbor of all this. Do I want to look down the road and see, oh my God, go driving into the brand new places we're very recently in the next few years going to make really nice, and then you take a corner and you go into an area and all of a sudden there's trash cans everywhere. I don't know if the majority is liking that or not. I just wanted to clarify that's what we were talking about.
That's
Okay,
correct.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then I will open the public hearing at 7:05 or 7:06 PM. If there's anybody from the audience who wishes to speak about this topic, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and please sign in if you haven't already done so. The podium, right in front, yep.
My name is Tom Kratz. I've been a resident for 45 years, and Ross and I are the code inspectors. We're the volunteers. We've been doing this for 10 years. And what's proposed has taken all the teeth away. Like you said, they can, if it's 5 feet, it could be in front of the garage, and we prefer to see them at a minimum on the side of the garage. And the city has one code for the whole city, but each neighborhood is different. 3-car garages normally have room for their trash cans. Older neighborhoods might have a single tuck-under garage. They have no place to hide their garbage can. So the new proposed ordinance is too lax, I think. We won't be able to enforce anything. So, hope you can think about it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Can I ask Mr. Kratz a question?
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Kratz, could I ask you a question? Will you come back up, please? What do you suggest? Are you simply suggesting that some leniency here might make enforcement easier, less tedious, but the proposed ordinance should require it to be behind the front of the garage? I guess.
At a minimum. And if the city could have different codes for different neighborhoods, that would be even more appreciative of the neighborhoods, I think. Because you could have $500,000 homes and somebody moves in and they can keep their garbage cans wherever they want, and the city won't have anything to say about it.
Commissioner John.
So I'm assuming that as an inspector, you see all kinds of things across the board.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me, you're seeing some things that really need to be regulated when you say there's no teeth in the enforcement.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there, I guess what I'm asking is what kind of requirements are you looking at now? Are there things that you would let slide compared to, in the current environment? I would think there was like a gray area, if you will.
Yeah, right. We're not employees, we're volunteers, so we get a list of complaints, and we go out once a week, and we have our own discretion because we realize that this home can't hide. They probably don't have room in the garage, and they can't hide it any place. So we may kind of take a easy look at that complaint, where others are they should be able to abide by the code.
It just seems like they're being lazy or something
Yeah,
along those
it's
lines.
too bad we have to have one code
Right.
for the whole city. But it'd be difficult to separate it by neighborhoods, which would be preferred solution.
Okay, thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Hold on. Who's up?
You.
Oh, I am, thank you.
Yeah.
First off, thanks to both of you for the service you're doing. Volunteer work is never easy, especially when you're considered the muscle of Burnsville. I like your idea in regards to neighborhoods and things like that, and I'm really,
Maybe they could vote on it.
well, the thing I'm asking you then is, it might not be a neighborhood type thing, it might be an actual structure type thing. Because reading through all of the comments from all of the neighbors, one of the things that came up was a mother who said, I have a single car garage, I can barely get my car in there, plus garbage cans, and with the kids and everything going through there is no room to do whatever, and it's just basically where they live. And yes, you talk about a big 3-car garage, 4-car garage, and tons of room to do whatever, there's not even a concern there, because they can do that, I can see that. So, from a neighborhood standpoint, I think if you did neighborhoods, it'd be hard to cookie cut all that stuff. I think that'd be a logistic nightmare, you know? But is there an opportunity to maybe think of, the type of structure that you live into?
Your example could be Mrs. X just asked for a waiver. I can't abide by the code. Can I get a waiver? And
Has that ever been done? I'm just asking.
As far as the
If
enforcement
If
of,
this is a blanket across the city, and we've got, 6 different types of homes that are basically built in this city, from everything from, and you can attest to what type of stuff is around here. Is there an opportunity to have a different category for certain type of home that you have? If you have a single, 3-bedroom home with a single-car garage that's not even attached or attached, you're limited to the space you can put it. That might be on the side of that garage, side of building type thing. I'm really looking to get this away from in front of buildings.
in my opinion, it just becomes just too complex and too, not only to spell out in the code all the different scenarios that we could potentially have, and then from the enforcement standpoint, I think what's proposed is pretty clean cut. No matter what type of style of house you have, if you have a split level, if you have a, brand new built in 2019 with all the bells and whistles, and everything in between, and it's pretty cut and dry.
But I'm trying to wrap myself around having garbage cans in front of the houses as a neighbor. Just, that's one of the biggest things that came up with everybody was it's gonna take away the ability to, I don't wanna use the word put teeth in type stuff, but it's not a clear cut of where you have to put your garbage cans. And everybody has 3 now, some people have more. Most people are limited to 2, but most of us do have 3. There's a lot of stuff to put in these things, they're huge. Not everybody has the room to store this stuff. But I'm concerned that we're gonna have garbage cans in front of everybody's houses, and someone's gonna say, well, I don't have any time to really move it, so I'm just gonna have my spot now in front of my 3rd stall, because I don't use my 3rd stall. I'm just spitballing there, but I'm understanding with what you're going through, yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Timmerman.
I just want to follow up with one thing. Again, I agree with everything Commissioner Roberts said. Thank you very much for your dedication to enforcing this. And I agree. I think that within 5 feet, if it were tweaked to say at least behind the front line of the garage, would at least take the cans away from that direct street view. Properties are all different shapes and sizes. Homes are all different shapes and sizes. But I think that at least gives it, a little bit more clarity in the ordinance. And
a similar code is if your neighbor has a boat and they have a hard surface, they can park it on the side of the house legally, as long as it's behind the front of the house.
sure.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So there again, it's not in front of the house, but it's at least not protruding.
So I appreciate your service and your willingness to give your opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Awad?
I have a question for Ms. Dean. Do you know, I mean, the typical minimum side yard setback for a house in Burnsville is 10 feet. Are there any that are 5 feet or less?
Garages can be 5 feet.
Garage can be
from the
5
side.
feet, so you could have your 5 feet, your garage can be 5 feet. I should know this. I should know this, yeah. So you can have your 30-inch garbage can be basically right on your property line. If you set it next to your garage and your garage is, I'm just kind of going through the implication of setting it not in front of your house, but next to your garage, and it's a 30-inch garbage can, and the edge of your garage is 5 feet from the property line, so it's, your garbage can's gonna be 30 inches from your neighbor's property. That's a possibility of limiting it to just be behind the front line of the garage. Okay.
Certainly one scenario. Certainly, we have, I think it was brought up, we have a lot of tuck-under type garages. We have unique topography in Burnsville where, sometimes it might not fit on the side of a house in those instances. There's all sorts of different scenarios that are out there. We tried to come up with something that was flexible enough and could fit a wide variety of circumstances, and we're trying to be fair too. And the proposal is again something that City Council had advised staff to propose.
And is there anybody else from the audience who wishes to speak about this item? Nope. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing at 7:17. Commissioners, other comments? Okay, Commissioner Roberts.
And I'd love to talk to you guys now about wording of this, because we've always had the opportunity to take wording back to the city council and a change and see what they think. That's what we do. And I don't know if we're all on the same page, but I know at least a couple of us are, so I won't speak for everybody, but the wording within 5 feet of a garage or accessory structure is something that just, if you ask me, can be changed to, and I'm not a wording guy, but in regards to containers must be no closer to the city street as the closest parallel building front. How would you reword that? I'm looking right at you.
Me? That sounded pretty good.
In regards to what you do and stuff, and in regards to what we go and anybody
Yeah.
else on this panel, you see what I'm getting at? The containers must be no closer to the street, the city street, as the closest parallel of a building.
So
Their
if your
structure.
garage is set back from the front of your house, however you wanna look at that.
Right.
You can have garbage cans in view of the street in front of your garage door, and it's still behind the front line of your house. If your house stands, if your house,
Oh, good
some
point.
houses,
So-
some houses have the house is closer to the street. A lot of houses,
Yeah.
built in the 80s and 90s have the garage closer to the street. So you can have your garbage can in front of your front door, it's behind the front line of your garage.
Okay, so that's what I mean by the wording would have to say something in regards to,
Yeah.
do you go by your garage?
Yeah, I know what I think we're struggling with the same thing about having garbage cans in front of your house it seems unfortunate if you can,
Yeah, and I
if you
have
can
a
avoid
very-
it, that's the thing.
I have compassion for the people who don't have the room right now to do all that, and that's why I'm trying to figure something out on the side of doesn't have to be in the building. It could be on the side of a garage, which I know a lot of people don't mind doing.
Yeah.
And if you don't have room there, it means you need to clean up some garbage that's on the side of your garage.
Well, you get into the like a tuck under, if you have a tuck under garage, it means your house is kind of set into a hill, and so either side of you can't put a can next to your house because your house is set into a hill.
That might be a screening opportunity then.
Yeah, that's a tough one,
I'm sorry, but that's where you live.
yeah.
It's tough love. But see where the wording would come into play, where if there was any way to make it crystal clear that you can't put your garbage cans in front of your garage or in front of your house. So when you drive by, there's just 3 nice, beautiful cans sitting out within 5 feet. As much as I appreciate what the council wants to do, I think they're trying to make it easy on people. That's great. But then for the neighbors that are in the majority who don't want to see this every day when they drive down the street, some neighborhoods I could see get really bad. You know,
Yeah,
and these
it's-
guys are out twice as much.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be toughest in the oldest neighborhoods, that's the,
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that is the challenge, and just for ease of updating it, I mean, the way it's basically written right now is within 5 feet or behind the primary structure. And if we change it to within 5 feet and behind the front, wall, the front structure versus primary structure, I mean, it basically means no matter how your home is developed, you have to have it behind that front line. And, I mean, then you have consistency, but I do agree, maybe there can be variances based on unique features, unique properties. Maybe there could be something that the city council considers, in those instances. But I was just thinking, you know, we talked about this ordinance being around for 40 years. Remember what garbage collection looked like? I don't, 40 years ago, but
Same thing.
it was metal cans, whichever one you bought at your hardware store. It was bags of garbage. Everybody does have these consistent cans now, and, I mean, they're overflowing at times, and there's still garbage on the street. But I think, you know, that kind of speaks to why these ordinances exist, because there was such inconsistency that time ago, and I think that by and large, we're already better than we were then. But if we update it to 5 feet and behind the front-facing wall of your structure, I think that might get to where we want.
If I may note, people are still going to store their trash cans in their garage. They're still gonna put it, they're still gonna put up screening. They're still gonna put it behind the screening. That's still gonna happen. And I think, you know, Chris Forsland did say that, this is one of the most, you know, complaints that we do receive. But there's tons of people that contain and store their cans as well. So it's not like all 60,000 people living in Burnsville are gonna, all of a sudden this gets lifted and they're all gonna, you know.
Hog wild.
No, I don't think so, no.
Well, I am in favor of what staff has proposed. I see no issue with it, just merely for the fact that all garbage containers are now all consistent in size, quality of the material, they all have lids, you know, they all appear very similar. In my opinion, I don't do code enforcement's job at all, but when they get called out, there's other major issues, not just there's 2 garbage cans in front of their house. You know, and then I'm thinking, well, what about senior residents or handicapped residents? Those trash cans are hard enough to tote around in the summertime, much less, you know, think about winter and snow. You know, and it would just be easier to keep the trash cans, you know, within the 5 feet of the garage or accessory. Or even for us, for example, we have an L-shaped house and we have the fence that comes up to the garage. So, you know, it's the garage and the fence right there. So we've been sticking it behind the fence. But in the wintertime, that fence gets frozen in place. And it's very difficult to open that up, get the trash cans down to the curb. So that's why I am in favor of what staff has proposed. Commissioner John.
So it sounds like everybody is in favor of removing the screening portion at least of this ordinance. Is that correct? Because I think that was the main goal here, was removing the screening portion. To go back to what Commissioner Roberts is talking about, I wonder if you talk about the front of the house, and we all know that some houses have two fronts, according to, and I don't know how that would all play into this. But as limited a view from the street as possible, would that make more sense?
But wouldn't that be subjective?
Of course, but
So,
all of this is subjective, right?
It's a gray area, yeah.
I mean, this, yeah, that's,
Commissioner Anderson.
I'm kind of thinking the idea that, the majority of people who have the room, say in their garage, or already have a screened-in area will continue to use that. There's no reason I would imagine they wouldn't if we change this ordinance. Where if we do change this ordinance, then people who do not have that ability, say they don't have that much room, say, they, one-car garage, or you just don't have any room on to store it, I think this at least gives them the ability to still remain within code without, I guess, constantly worrying that, am I doing something wrong with my trash? It's not my fault. It's just the way my house was set up, or the architecture of it was set up.
Any other comments, commissioners? Commissioner Timmerman.
I'd like to make a motion, and I don't exactly know how the wording is going to play out here, but the motion that I'd like to make is that the refuse containers have to be within 5 feet of the structure and at least behind the front of the building, whether that's the garage or the home, that's closest to the primary street.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Again, I still am opposed to that front, because there's just, where we live, our house, in the wintertime, there's just no way we can move our trash cans behind that fence. And then summertime is a whole nother story because of the smell and the garage, and, you can only get so many yard bags in the garage. It's silly. So I think the way that staff has proposed it, that will allow for some fluctuation on where the containers are stored. And a lot of people have pride in their houses. I don't think anybody's just gonna, have one trash can over here and another trash can over there. I mean, let's be realistic about this.
I'm a non-voting member, but I agree with you.
Yes.
So just in your circumstance, the 5 foot, ruling, right now with the added, verbiage that he put in, can you be compliant with that? Can you still be?
It would sorry to interrupt, but it would have to be on the other side of our fence, because our fence is in line with our garage.
So your cans have to be in that area? Okay.
Correct. Yep. So, and I know I can't be the only one in a similar situation like that, so.
But if it was written the way that staff has it, within 5 feet of your garage, you would basically just have it in front of your garage for the wintertime?
In front of the gate, yes,
Right.
yep.
Right. And that's just,
The way it's currently written, you could have it on your driveway in front of your garage, which I don't think is exactly what we're looking for either.
If it was in front of, or in somebody's driveway, then doesn't it also possibly block where they're gonna be able to park? So are we expecting a lot of people to actually do that? Like, who's gonna block one of their garage doors just to put trash there and then move it every time they open the door? You might as well just put it in the garage then, I guess, because you're not using that parking spot anyways.
We have 70,000 people with all different circumstances
That's
here.
true,
and We're
yeah,
not gonna
that's
find the silver bullet, so, I mean, that's the difficult thing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
You still have a motion on the table.
Yep. So all those in favor of what Timmerman had proposed, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Nay. So what is that? Motion carries.
3-2, yes.
That's great, because the city council will look at it and talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The fifth item is a public hearing for Hampton Companies LLC for preliminary and final plat of a one-lot commercial subdivision of Sweet Living of Burnsville and planned unit development amendment for a residential healthcare facility to be constructed at 1880 134th Street East, presented by Ms. Gayros.
Thank you. The subject site is a vacant piece of property that has had lots of different proposals over the years. For the most part, the property does have a lot of site encumbrances that make it difficult to build or to develop on it. And I think that most predominantly would be the steep slope area that's on the western side and the center area of the lot. And for the most part, the neighborhood adjacent to the west and to the north over the years has had issues when there have been proposals that have wanted to take a lot of those trees down, do a lot of grading in the slopes, etc. And the projects that have been approved in the past also have had difficulty, I think, being able to be economically viable, because you have to somehow put a street in there and to get to the various units, etc. There is a PUD that was approved on the site, and that consists of 11 town offices and then a number of townhomes as well. So the application this evening is to consider amending that planned unit development to allow new and different use on the site, and that would be the assisted living and memory care facility. And when the applicant came in to meet with staff, we were really happy to see this. We think that it's a very good fit for an infill lot, and it's something that they have been looking for in the Burnsville area for quite some time. So we've got a site that is zoned B2, which is our neighborhood business and planned unit development, surrounded by single-family residential to the west and to the north, and then we have right-of-way on the south and some other commercial zoning. The subject site actually has a couple of different parcels that are involved. It's got this parcel A, which is this small triangular piece in through here. And then parcel B is the remaining part of the property. We have 134th Street that's been constructed through the lot, so you have kind of this area to the south that's just cut off from the rest of it because of 134th Street. There are underground pipelines, or an underground natural gas pipeline that is located over this vicinity. And so that makes development within that a little more difficult. And then there's also a power line easement for overhead power lines that runs along the south part of the property. The steep slopes that we have, they're not the steepest that are regulated in Burnsville. If you are dealing with slopes that are 40% and greater, those are the steepest slopes that we regulate, but they're still pretty doggone steep. So being able to stay out of that is good for the developer because of the costs associated with it, and also I think good for the neighborhood and just good for maintaining the natural features, and kind of provides a natural buffer between the single family and the commercial property. So what the applicant would like to do is to construct an assisted living / memory care facility, and they have several other sites that they operate within Minnesota. And kind of their business plan, if you will, is to build these smaller places that feel more like home for their residents. They are staffed 24 hours, but to have several of them in a proximity where they can kind of use economies of scale to make their projects work out. So that's kind of what they like to do. This proposal, they're somewhere in between when you actually have an individual that needs nursing home care. This would be probably the place that they would be right before they get to that point. Assisted living, folks can pretty much live on their own but need assistance with some care needs. And then the memory care units are basically, those folks need full-time care and assistance. So what the project calls for is to remove that old PUD and then to construct this new development as proposed. The entire project really takes place on the southern part of the property, closer to 134th Street. That's where the majority of the buildable part of the site is. And they're proposing a little bit of grading within the steep slope areas to allow for putting in some retaining walls, but that's basically just to facilitate getting the building in there, and is very limited. In terms of the green space, that would be another maximum, or I guess PUD benefit, and they are far exceeding the standards, and those are definite benefits for the public and the community. They have 72% of the existing wooded area is going to be preserved. In a B2 zone, they can remove up to 50%, or maybe even 60%. So they're basically retaining a lot of trees on site. And unlike most of the sites that we look at, this actually has nice hardwoods on it, oaks. Nice trees. These are not all cottonwoods and those types of things. So the mature trees on site will be very nice for the development to have. They're also maintaining green space well above the standard, 77% as opposed to 25%. More green space within the parking area than the minimum requirement, and their building perimeter screening is at 75%, which is above 50% standard. So all of those we look at as PUD benefits. In terms of deviations, there's really only two. They do have a proposed trash enclosure, which is shown, and it's actually closer to the street than the building. Reason for that, and staff is supportive of this, is that if they were to meet the ordinance, it would have to be back somewhere behind this point, which gets you back in here, which again gets you closer to the slopes and to the side property line, and just puts more impervious surface in, and just is, we don't feel necessary. The ordinance was amended, so we don't have trash enclosures anymore with roofs. The applicant is, however, proposing to put their enclosure in. It will not have a roof, but it will have the gates, and it will be built of the same materials as the main building. So we're supportive from staff level of this. Also, there is a change in topography when you're driving down 134th Street. So visibility of this, you're going around a corner, you have a change in elevation, so it's not going to be something that just stands out like a sore thumb kind of a thing. So we think it actually works well with the site design. The project does include platting the property. They'll be platting it into one lot, and then the area that I was talking to before on this screen north is to the left. But this area across the street, they're basically going to be providing as right-of-way. So all of this will be right-of-way, so you won't have an extra little piece of property just kind of hanging out there on the other side of the street. So that works out very well. The proposed plat meets all of the area width and setback requirements for the B2 zoning district. And just one thing to note for Planning Commission, this particular use for when you're dealing with a residential facility like this, a healthcare facility, there is a 50-foot setback standard when you're adjacent to single family. Same kind of thing applies for churches, schools, those types of things. So there is a 50-foot setback to the west and to the north, and the project does meet that. The final plat is also included in your packet, and basically it's just the one lot, and then 134th Street. Again, plat meets all the requirements. They're proposing dedications of all the drainage and utility easements that are required and the right-of-way. In terms of the woodlands, again, they're not removing very much in terms of the tree cover on site, so they do not have to provide tree replacement. This plan is showing where they will basically be putting up fencing so that there definitely isn't anything, anybody out on there, doing work out there will not be doing any work past this fencing area, so that's all tree protection fencing. And the X's indicate the trees that will be removed, and these trees will have fencing and these will be preserved. For the site plan itself, basically it's fairly simple. We've got the building with 18 units of the assisted living on the west, and then the other units on the east would be the memory care. It's a one-story building, about 25 feet for overall height, and there will be a patio that's fenced in on the north side of the building here. And they are proposing to have sidewalks that will come down and meet the sidewalk within 134th Street, and then basically be available around the entire building for their staff and residents. And then the proposal, again, does include this trash enclosure that we just talked about. There is a proposed freestanding sign, which does meet the ordinance setbacks and standards. Freestanding sign that would be located in adjacent to the parking lot here. There are retaining walls that are proposed. There are 3 retaining walls, double retaining walls in this location. And they are actually, they're not in the side yard or the rear yard. So even though this one that's furthest to the west is about 11 feet in height, it will not need a separate conditional use permit because it's not in the required 10-foot side yard or a rear yard. And then closer to the building, I believe that retaining wall is about 6 feet tall. And then there's another short retaining wall, again in this location. Also, it's not within that side yard setback, so this one is about 8 feet at its tallest point, and then it gets shorter at both ends. There are 24 parking spaces that are proposed, and then there's an underground treatment system for stormwater treatment that's proposed, so no additional stormwater ponds or anything are proposed for the site. And then this is just a floor plan showing the assisted living and memory care, pretty much very similar on both sides. Memory care side will be locked for the security of the folks living there, but otherwise there are there are dining facilities in both areas, and then also there are offices that will be located near the front entrance, which is at this location. They've got 3 offices and kind of a waiting area, and through here is the other office. And then there is also a secondary exit on the building on the west side, and this is where folks from the assisted living area can get out, get to that sidewalk, and then walk around back to the patio. For the building itself, we're looking at a PUD deviation that's needed because this is a business zone, but they're proposing horizontal lap siding. And that is typically more of a residential type material, and generally in the business districts, not a material that's allowed by the ordinance. But in this case, this is really a transition piece, between single family and between the business district, and residents will be living there. So even though it's a business, it is a residential type building. So staff has no issues with the exterior materials that are proposed. And then there is a front entry area that has a canopy in this location. And then there's also a second canopy here on the west side of the building. And this is for the folks to get out to access the back of the building. The other sign that's proposed on the site is actually proposed to be on the side of the building. This would be on the, let's see, would be actually on this side, the side facing west. And it's one wall sign, very small amount of signage in comparison to what's allowed. So their signage is, does meet the ordinance. They do meet the ordinance in terms of their architectural design, in that they do have multiple roof lines, parts of the building, you know, with the walls that are, some are receded, some are brought out a little bit further. They do have the dormers. They have different materials that are proposed in different colors, and different window styles and door styles. On this, I just wanted to show your attention, it's a little hard to see it here, but this would be the fenced-in patio area. So very nice wrought iron type or metal fencing. The exterior materials do include a base, which will be a rock, you know, surface rock face type material, and then the siding, which is it's not a hardy board siding, but it's very close to that. It's actually a newer and more superior product that will, it's an engineered, kind of an engineered wood, and I think will look very nice for this location. The trash enclosure, as I indicated, this will be what it looks like when you're facing, or when you're driving or walking by to the site, except that it will be elevated, so you're not actually going to see that front on, but I think it looks very nice. You can see the stone similar to the building on the bottom part of it, and then the same material, siding material. In terms of the plantings on the site, this is a large site in relation to the building, and the applicant has met the ordinance. They will be actually planting quite a few more trees north of the site. This area is relatively open now, and the materials that they proposed, both the plants, trees, everything meets the ordinance standards, the 25% diversity, etc., and should be a very, very attractive plan and landscaping. They are also proposing a series of junipers, which are shorter shrubs along the front of the parking lot, and that serves as screening. Anytime you have 6 or more parking spaces, there's a screening requirement of between 3 and 4 feet for that, so this does meet that requirement as well. And for the utility plan, we previously went over that they are showing an underground treatment system for stormwater management, and other questions, if you have particular questions about utilities, we have our consultant engineer Lanny Lechte that's here and can address those. Fairly straightforward in terms of the project. It will be served by city sewer, water, and storm sewer. And then the erosion control is provided. This is something that is required of all applications, so they will have that. There is one element of the plan that our fire department and city engineer are working with the applicant on, and that's related to just turning radius for the largest size ambulance that the city has. What we need to have is we have provided the dimensions for the ambulance, and probably what will need to happen is this may need to be extended a little bit, you know, for the circle. There may need to be a little bit of modification just to make the turning movements at this location, but there should not be any issues with that, but that is one of the items that's a condition. With that, staff is recommending approval of the application. There are a number of conditions. Number one, this is a standard condition that fill slopes not exceed 3 to 1. 2, the safety vents be provided on top of the retaining wall. This is the southeast corner of the parking lot, where you have people possibly that could be walking around, and the retaining wall is taller than 5 feet, so that's a standard condition. Any retaining walls over 4 feet have to be engineered, again, standard condition. And the applicant will need to meet with the city forester with regard to the placement of the tree protection fencing. prior to doing any removals. Number 5, they will need sign permits, separate sign permits to be obtained by the city prior to installing the signs on the outside of the building and on the site. They will need to submit an exterior lighting plan and photometric plan, which they will include as part of their packet for their building permit, and we don't anticipate any issues with that. For the stormwater management system, they need to have an agreement signed with the city engineer for ongoing maintenance of that. Then the turning radius exhibit needs to be updated, so that's the next condition. The engineering, for the engineering approvals for the site, they do need this National Pollution Discharge permit and a right-of-way permit before starting work at the site. The project does contain a plat, so the overall development fees associated with the plat are $141,285, so that would need to be paid prior to releasing the final plat. And then number 11, this is something that's a little bit different than you've probably seen. In this case, we have the various approvals, PUD approvals that have occurred before this. And in order to kind of clean up all of that, both for the city and for anybody looking back and trying to figure out what's actually approved for the site, we worked with the city attorney to basically repeal and rescind the other previous approvals for this. So if this is approved, this PUD will be the legal document for the site. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Timmerman.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Garros, these existing PUD ordinances were because previous projects had been proposed for this property, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it looks like the most recent one was 2004.
Yes.
So it's safe to say that over 15 years of this property not being developed, not being usable, this is a pretty positive project for the city.
I believe so. I think this is a great project for this site. It fits. It's really great in terms of the use with surrounding uses. We did have a neighborhood meeting for this, had 2 folks come out for that. I believe one lived west and the other lived north of the site, and they've been around for 30 years and have seen the previous approvals, and they really like the project, and we're very happy to see that proceed forward. So just in terms of the public, input or lack thereof.
I'm glad to hear that because, I mean, it does abut these properties, but it's a unique slope, it's got the unique tree coverage, and so I don't think there will be any impact to the backyards of those residential houses. And frankly, I drive that road every time I come and go from this meeting, and I didn't realize there was a property there. So if we can put something, built as nicely as this that can help some of our senior residents and residents in need, I think it's great, and I don't see any issues with it.
Commissioner John.
This is right in my neighborhood. I think this is I've always wondered what we're gonna end up putting in this property. What's the reason for some of the other projects fizzling out, failing? Like Commissioner Timerson said, it's been 15 years since anything's actually been there, so there's gotta be something.
We've had, there have been more recent concept plans, but they haven't had any formal, they haven't gone as far as a formal approval. I think the biggest issues is really they were trying to, I think, accomplish too much to make money, to address all of the costs associated with cutting into that hillside. With that, when you try to put in any type of even a private road to deal with townhomes, which several of the projects had, you really only can get townhomes for the most part facing over onto the gas station site. The road pretty much needs to come in north-south, and you do have some buildable area here, but not too much. And I think the economics of it just did not pan out.
Perfect solution for otherwise good deal.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing at 7:54 PM. Is there anybody from the audience who wishes to speak about this topic? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please sign in if you haven't done so already.
Sure. My name is Joe Larson. I'm president of Hampton Companies and also president of Sweet Living. Thank you for the presentation. You did a great job. I'm here for answering questions. We're excited to come to Burnsville and would like to have this move forward. A little bit about us. We've got other sites. You can look on our website, Sweet Living. We have up and operational in Vadnais Heights. We've got one in Roseville. We have one in Little Canada. We have one opening within a couple of months in North St. Paul. We have 3 other ones under construction, one in Ramsey, Brooklyn Center, and Inver Grove Heights. And so we're excited to be here, and it's here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Yeah, I think you just answered it when one of my questions was gonna be, where else are your locations? It looks like you're sounding like you're traveling south compared to what you have. Burnsville is one of your most southern, structures. Are you going any farther? I mean,
Yeah.
Lakeville, things like that? I mean, the way that they were describing that this is the type of building that you don't have the massive, as much as the smaller, but many, are you planning on doing more stuff around here?
Yeah, we are. We're trying to build them in hubs of 3, so really what we're doing is 96 units in 3 locations. So to make it work, yes, we're looking at a site in Apple Valley, we're looking at one in Prior Lake, we've got the one in Inver Grove Heights, so we are moving to the south. We haven't identified that we are looking at another one in Burnsville, so we might be back in front of you again. We, again, like the area and think there's a great need here for it. A little bit about us, we develop them, so we find the sites, we go through the process of getting them entitled. We also build the sites, so I have a construction company that builds them, and then my company, Sweet Living, runs and operates them. So we're not just coming in, building them and selling them and moving on. This is something that we take a lot of pride in and want to build them right, and there's a reason why we do what we're doing, to take care of the people and making sure that they're taken care of well. Yeah. And that's really the key to what we're doing.
Yeah,
So.
you're going farther than anybody else in the past that wanted to put something on this lot.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I don't know the past, so I'm here to go, so yeah.
You can tell the excitement of even us as neighbors in that wanting something like this to come in, which would be a perfect, a fit for that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Commissioner Timmerman?
I love the structure of that. I love the fact that you retain the investment. When I go on to Department of Human Services and Department of Health tonight, what is the track record of your business with these vulnerable adults?
We have no complaints, bottom line. We fill them very fast. Matter of fact, we're typically full in 120 days from the time we open to the time that we're full. We do take 20% of elderly waiver, which is affordable. So when people move in and they run out of money, we don't throw them out the door like a lot of other people do. We work with them. End of life is what this is, and our typical person is here about 3 years. So it's a different product, it's a niche. The big buildings that are going up, there are feeders. When they become 2-person transfers, the care gets too high, then they call us and say, hey, do you got any openings? And that's kind of what we do. I don't know if that answered your question.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Awad?
Oh, I was gonna say this, I just wanna commend you on a really elegant solution to a challenging site. It's just like, as Ms. Garrow said, this is a perfect fit and a perfect sort of transition building between, the busier road and the neighborhoods to the north and west, and fitting it in there between the gas pipeline and the road and the hill, and yeah, really nicely done, so.
And it was a challenge. We really like the site. I know there's a gas station next to it, but there's also a daycare across the street.
Yeah.
So we try to integrate that into our system where some of those kids will come over and adopt a grandma or grandpa, and we try to get them involved as best we can with the community and with the people around there. So we like that part of it, and it is a challenging site, but we're up for it, so we'll make it work.
Commissioner John?
First, thank you for choosing Burnsville. I think that's awesome that you chose us. Secondly, you have a large backyard back there. Are you planning to do anything with that, or are you just going to keep it wooded? as
Yeah, I
is?
think our goal is to put more trees in there.
Okay.
And keep it as private as we can. To be honest with you, our residents don't go out and they're high care. They're in walkers, they're in wheelchairs. Family members may take them out onto the patio in the back, or our staff may. The building is a lockdown building, so nobody can come into the building without an access. And then the memory care is also locked down again, so there's a double lockdown area for that. So the backyard is more just for viewing. And it's sad to say this, but they really will be staring out the front of the building to see traffic and to see things going on. They don't want to look at butterflies in the back. They want to see life, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to say, I drive down that road every day on my way to work, and I'm excited for the idea of that being developed. And I really like the idea that you're really doing a minimal job as possible as far as affecting the trees and everything there, and that you're planting additional ones. That I personally really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, we want this to be beautiful. We own it, we take it, we run it, we maintain it. We did, as you mentioned, had a neighborhood meeting, and we take that seriously when the neighbors come and get their input, and if there's something that we can do to screen things, but they were really positive for the project. So it's not a 3-story building, it's a 1-story building, which will fit in there, I think. Very nice. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Commissioner Roberts.
I'm curious, if all this process is approved and everything goes through and that, how long does it take before you're opening your doors to people?
Typically, it takes us between 7 and 8 months to build it, so it'll be a spring start.
Yeah.
So when, we may try to get some equipment moved in before road restrictions go on, but we really won't get started until that time, which is probably, April or May. And then it's 7 to 8 months to build it. And then we usually take about 30 days to do our FF&E and opening and all the massaging that has to happen before we actually start moving residents in. So
you're about a year out from now?
About a year from now, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, I will close the public hearing at 8:01 p.m. Commissioners, any other comments? Commissioner Roberts.
I'd like to make a motion,
Okay,
if nobody has anything to say. I don't want to, you guys are okay. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the PUD amendment for the residential healthcare facility, 32-unit assisted living memory care, and the preliminary and final plat of a 1-lot commercial subdivision of Sweet Living of Burnsville, subject to the following 11 conditions that are listed.
is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And then this item will go to the city council next week on Tuesday, which I believe is December 2nd.
Third.
Third.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So the next item is updates. Commissioners, any updates? Staff? Any updates?
Do you have any updates, Deb?
No, just the agenda. Did I bring that in? Copies of the agenda?
I have 2 questions regarding updates, and maybe you guys touched on this last week and I missed it, but the project with the Sprint building and the Jersey Mike's, is that moving forward with what the Planning Commission had recommended?
That applicant has not signed their planning and development agreement yet, so that still needs to be in place, and then I have not inspected the site to see if they've met the conditions. I'm seeing some head shaking, so maybe not.
Haven't seen it.
Okay.
And then the other one was the quick trip on County Road 5. Is that moving forward?
As far as I understand, they are still moving forward. They are working out some details with the plat, with the county. Currently, the CDA owns the property, so they're working out some final details. There was some environmental analysis that needed to be completed prior to Quick Trip signing any documents and prior to handing over or selling the property. So as far as I know, that's still on track, and hopefully soon we'll receive an application for the vacant site behind it as well.
Great, thanks.
And I did forget to bring in your agenda for next time. Basically, we have tentatively scheduled a public hearing for zoning ordinance, or excuse me, zoning map amendments for multiple properties that need to bring them to be consistent with the overall comp plan. So a lot of them are rezoning various things to mixed use. So that will be before you. Also, we have an application for Grace Church for a potential 55 and over senior active living proposal. We just received the plans today. Not sure if everything will be on for that to continue to make it at that agenda, but we're looking for that to be on. If not next time, then the time after that. I don't know, Regina, if you're familiar with any other. I think that's it.
I believe that's it. In future meetings, we anticipate parking ordinance changes and the transit-oriented development zoning ordinance as well, but those are yet to come.
Great.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
By John. Is there a second?
Second.
By Lod. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned.
Thank you.